Hello everyone and welcome to this devlog. I have not exactly been regular with my videos this past year, but it's 2023, so I'll try to increase that rhythm a bit. Not that I've been idle this past few months. As you can see, I've been working on my main project, Mona, which you can wishlist on Steam if you want to support me, as well as different small prototypes and just generally improving my skills. I've especially been working on more stylized art, and I wanted to apply that in a game. I cannot promise anything, but hopefully this new project will keep me occupied for a bit, and I'll manage to make a few devlogs along the way. So, what is this new project? Well, it's an untitled small game that I have recently started working on. It is still quite vague, but hopefully it will evolve into something nice. It is not a very ambitious game, but I would really like to take the time to build it in the next few months and to document it with these devlogs. I will try to focus on the different aspects of game dev, such as gameplay, art, graphics, programming, etc. Everything is prone to change, but here is the main idea for now. You play as a small merchant ship that has to deliver a shipment to a specific port. This may or may not be inspired by a great YouTuber's own project, although it is quite different because it does not take place in the real world. Each level is a different, unique map, and you have to figure out where you are, where the port is, and how to get there. Now, the player has a map of the whole level, with every town, every passageway, but there is no minimap style indication of where they are at any point. So they have to figure out their position based on their observation of the landscapes, of the towns, of the features of the forests, and then find a way to reach their destination. That's really the basic idea. I have a few mechanics in mind that could expand on it, such as some kind of limit, so a time limit or a distance limit, which puts pressure on the player to finish as quickly as possible. Maps may be incomplete to make levels harder. A more advanced sailing sim might be nice, where you have to take the wind into account, set your sails accordingly and handle your crew. Adding obstacles, such as sea monsters and pirates, could be interesting. And maybe to go even one step further, include some simple naval combat, which would force the player to choose between safe but longer routes and shorter but riskier path. And finally, an idea that I got a bit later on, but I think could become actually the main mode of the game, would be a two-player co-op mode, where one of the players can only see the map, whereas the other player cannot see it at all. So they have to communicate in order to figure out how to get to the destination. But I'll have to test these mechanics later on, because of course the reasonable thing to do when starting a new game is to avoid wasting time on secondary elements and to make a very simple working prototype, which is what I did. No, of course not. It was actually a full-fledged ocean system, which was, of course, not the most urgent thing at all, but I was just really interested in how I could make it. So to make an ocean, you need waves. You have a few different options when it comes to waves. Simple, hassle-free solutions, such as sine waves or textures, and complex approaches, like Gessner waves, which look very nice, but will be a pain every single step of the process. So of course, I made Gessner waves. They are essentially a mathematics function that allows you to model waves a bit more realistically than pure sine waves, which are very round and as such cannot model the sharp crests of an ocean. There is a great resource to make one Gessner wave, which I will link below, which I translated into shader graph. But the thing is, to get something somewhat interesting, you have to stack multiple waves of multiple wavelength and of multiple amplitudes. So I created a procedural function that allows me to create as many waves as I want of varying amplitudes, direction, steepness, and wavelength. There are also two sliders that allow me to tweak the look of the ocean. One that allows me to choose if all the waves are going roughly in the same direction or whether they are going in purely random directions. Moving that slider is kind of trippy and I really like playing with it. The second slider allows me to choose how the different characteristics of the waves are spread or distributed among the different waves, so it can be linear or more exponential. Once I was happy with the waves, I moved on to the shading, starting with the color, with two main colors, one for the deep sea and one for the shorelines, using a simple depth calculation. I added planar reflections, which really helps sell the fact that this is a detailed and reflective surface. I added one simple specular reflection, which uses the main light, so the sun, to create this simple cartoony reflection on the water. Then I added subsurface scattering, which is essentially when light goes through a wave. It's not completely absorbed, so if the wave is thin enough, you can see some of the light that goes through it, so it illuminates on the other side. I did this very simply by using the dot product from the main light and the camera, so you can see how much the camera is facing the main light. And then I blurb to another color based on the height of the wave, because the higher it is, the thinner it is, so the brighter the light comes through. All of this is quite simple, but I think it works fine enough for this stylized look. And then finally I added foam. There are a few different ways I did that. First of all, based on the height of the waves, so the very top, the crest, often has a bit of foam. Then there is some foam that is scattered randomly along the surface, using a simple noise texture. Then there is the foam trail that the boat leaves behind, which is using a simple particle system that is captured from top down by a camera, which is then projected in the sea shader in world space in order to create this nice trail effect. Finally, there is the foam on the shoreline. You can do this very simply by using the same technique as I did for the depth effect. But this is not ideal because it does not look great from all angles, and in my opinion it seems very artificial and it doesn't look like the foam really comes from the shore. So what I do is there is another camera that takes a top-down view of the whole map, which is then slightly blurred using a compute shader, and then inside of the sea shader I can sample it and use a sine function and some noise to make it foamy. I also use this same blurred top-down texture in order to attenuate the waves in shallow water so that you don't have huge waves that just disappear inside rocks. Now for all of these stylized shading that I did, one extremely important resource that I used was a set of custom nodes that is made by Cyan and which you can get on their website, which I will link below. In order to have the possibility to make dynamic weather, I then created a script that could interpolate different ocean states, which are stored in scriptable objects, so that I can easily, during the gameplay, change from a very wavy sea to a very calm sea, which could make things a bit more interesting later on. Finally, I implemented a simple buoyancy solution, which is based on the tutorial that I did a while back. Gustno waves, however, are especially annoying, so you can't actually sample the height of the ocean at a specific point, because the function will displace vertices on the x, y, and z axis. So essentially the only solution to get the exact height at a certain point is to use an iterative approach. So you have to sample the ocean at some point, then calculate the offset between the point you get and the one you want to have, and then offset it, and do this a couple of times in order to get something precise enough. Now this seems quite simple in theory, but it took me way too much time because of a line that was inside a for loop rather than outside, and I got a lot of very strange behaviors along the way, which I will share here in a end of the video montage. Thanks a lot for watching this devlog. Feel free to give me feedback on everything I talked about, or even suggestions on gameplay, on a game name even, or just generally speaking stuff you'd like me to talk about. Bye bye!